Dear learners, in this section we shall study what are prebiotics and how do they work. Prebiotics are mostly fibers that are non-digestible food ingredients and beneficially affect the host health by selectively stimulating the growth and or activity of some genera of microorganisms in the colon, generally lactobacilli and bifidobacteria. Prebiotics allow the selective growth of certain indigenous gut bacteria. A good prebiotic would utilize the gut bacterial fermentation and physiology in a very tailored manner. An ideal prebiotic should be resistant to actions of acid in the stomach, bile salts and other hydrolyzing enzymes in the intestine, should not be absorbed in the upper gastrointestinal tract, be easily fermentable by the beneficial intestinal microflora. In this module, we will study what are prebiotics and the role of prebiotics. Food and Agriculture Organization and World Health Organization defines prebiotics as a non-viable food component that confer health benefits on the host associated with modulation of the microbiota. Prebiotics form a group of diverse carbohydrate ingredients. Some carbohydrates of interest as prebiotics are neosugars, inulin like fructans, that is fructo-oligosaccharides of chain length up to 60 units, soy oligosaccharides, galacto-oligosaccharides, isomaltose oligosaccharides, genito-oligosaccharides, xylo-oligosaccharides, lactulose, that is fructose galactose disaccharide, raffinose, stachyose, sorbitol, xylitol, palanitose and lactosucrose. However, among prebiotics, only bifidogenic non-digestible oligosaccharides, particularly inulin, its hydrolysis products oligofructose and trans galacto-oligosaccharides GOS fulfill all the criteria for prebiotic classification. Prebiotics like inulin and pectin exhibit several health benefits like reducing the prevalence and duration of diarrhea, relief from inflammation and other symptoms associated with intestinal bowel disorders and protective effects to prevent colon cancer. They are also implicated in enhancing the bioavailability and uptake of minerals, lowering of some risk factors of cardiovascular diseases and promoting satiety and weight loss, thus preventing obesity. Some of the important properties of the oligosaccharides along with names of widely used prebiotics are outlined here. Now, the properties of an ideal prebiotics has been presented in this table. It has 2 columns, desirable attributes and properties of oligosaccharides. First desirable attribute is it should be active at low doses and property is selectively and efficiently metabolized by bifidobacterium and or lactobacillus species. Second desirable attribute is lack of side effects, for which it should be selectively and efficiently metabolized by beneficial bacteria without producing gas. Third is persistence through the colon, for which it should be preferably high molecular weight. Fourth is it should be of varying viscosity, for which it must be available in different molecular weight and linkages. It should be acceptable storage and processing stability, and for this it should possess 1,6 linkages and pyrenosyl sugar rings. It should have ability to control microflora modulation, for which it must be selectively metabolized by restricted microbial species. It must have varying sweetness, for which it must have varying monosaccharide composition. Fermentation of prebiotics by gut bacteria. A part of it we have already done in probiotics, and we will be repeating some part in this to give more insight of work of prebiotics. A complex resident gastrointestinal microflora is present in humans. While the transit of residual foodstuffs through the stomach and small intestine is probably too rapid for microflora to exert a significant impact, this slows markedly in the colon. As such, colonic microorganisms have ample opportunity to degrade available substrates, of which around 70 grams per day may be derived from the diet. These can be recognized as colonic foods, metabolism of which occurs through the anaerobic metabolic process known as fermentation. These colonic foods include resistant starch, non-starch polysaccharides, unabsorbed sugars, oligosaccharides, amino sugars, synthetic carbohydrates, dietary proteins and mucin. Now let us see persistence through the colon. Most prebiotics are metabolized in the proximal, that is right side of the colon, making this a very saccharolytic region of the gut. In contrast, the distal or left side of colon is much more proteolytic with relatively high levels of procarcinogens and toxins. A very desirable property in a prebiotics would be the ability to induce a saccharolytic metabolism throughout the length of the colon. This may be achievable by producing prebiotics with an appropriate molecular weight distribution such that low molecular weight molecules were metabolized in the left side and high molecular weight molecules were more slowly metabolized and reached the right side. This is represented diagrammatically in this figure. The non-carcinogenic properties, that is not being amenable to fermentation by oral bacteria to produce acid. An ideal prebiotic would also have a low calorific value. The definition of a prebiotic given above states that it should not be metabolizable by humans and therefore have no calorific value. This is not always achieved in practice. For instance, the isomalto-oligosaccharides are partially metabolizable by humans and have some calorific value. Now, mechanism of prebiotics. First, it increase in the expression or change in the composition of short chain fatty acid, that is lactic acid, propionic acid, acetic acid and butyric acid in colonocytes during fermentation of prebiotic carbohydrates. Increased fecal weight and mild reduction in luminal colon pH. A more acidic pH and modulation of the intestinal flora, especially growth stimulation of carbohydrate fermenting bacteria, decreased the concentration of putrefactive, toxic, mutagenic or genotoxic substances and bacterial metabolites as well as secondary bile acids and cancer promoting enzymes. The bifidobacteria and lactobacilli increased by oligosaccharides, they exhibit low beta glucuronidase and nitroreductase activity, decreased nitrogenous end products and reductive enzymes. Production of butyric acid reinforces the regenerative property of the intestinal epithelium through its pro-apoptotic potency. Increased expression of the binding proteins or active carriers associated with mineral absorption and enhanced immunity and modulation of mucin production. Now, let us conclude. We shall be studying prebiotics in greater detail under the following heads in Unit 3. definition, chemistry, sources, metabolism and bioavailability, effect of processing, physiological effects, effects on human health and potential applications in risk reduction of diseases, perspective for food application for the following: non-digestible carbohydrates, oligosaccharides, dietary fiber, resistant starch and gums.